My beloved child, pause here for a moment. Do not let your hand move past this message, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has been waiting to reach your heart, and the moment has finally arrived for the silence around it to begin breaking. There is a message connected to your soulmate, a message that has been forming in the hidden rooms of their heart, and although they may not yet know exactly how to speak it, heaven has seen every word they have rehearsed when no one else was listening. You may have felt a strange shift recently. Perhaps the air around you has seemed different. Perhaps a memory appeared without warning, or a name crossed your mind at an unusual hour. Maybe you felt a quiet heaviness one moment and a surprising sense of peace the next. You tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but something inside you refused to let it go. That feeling was not meant to frighten you. It was meant to prepare you, because a connection that appeared silent on the outside has been moving deeply beneath the surface. Your soulmate may have an important message for you, but the story behind that message is more powerful than the words themselves. Stay close, because what happened inside their heart did not happen in a single moment. It began slowly, through memories they thought they had buried, questions they tried to avoid, and emotions they could no longer explain away. The message they carry was born from a realization, and that realization has changed the way they see you. There was a time when they believed distance would make everything easier. They thought if they stayed busy enough, surrounded themselves with enough noise, or filled their days with enough distractions, the feeling would eventually become smaller. They convinced themselves that what they felt was temporary. They told themselves that strong connections happen all the time and that this one would fade like everything else. But it did not fade. In fact, the more they tried to push it away, the clearer it became. At first, they noticed you in ordinary memories. A certain expression on your face. The way your voice softened when you spoke sincerely. The way you listened when other people only waited for their turn to talk. They remembered details they had never intended to keep. Small things. Quiet things. Things that should have disappeared with time, yet somehow remained untouched. Then something unexpected happened. They began comparing every new conversation to the feeling they once had around you. They noticed how rare it was to feel understood without having to explain everything. They noticed how difficult it was to find the same warmth, the same mystery, the same sense of recognition. And slowly, an uncomfortable truth began rising inside them. You had reached a part of their soul that no one else had reached. Do not rush past that sentence, because there is more hidden inside it than you realize. They did not understand the depth of your presence while they were standing close to it. Sometimes people recognize the value of light only after they have walked into a darker room. Sometimes the heart understands what the mind refuses to accept. And sometimes a soulmate connection becomes impossible to ignore only after silence reveals what words could not. Your soulmate has been asking questions they never expected to ask. Why did your presence feel familiar? Why did your absence feel louder than the presence of others? Why did certain moments with you continue returning, even after so much time had passed? They tried to answer logically, but logic could not explain the pull. Something within them kept whispering, "There is unfinished truth here." That whisper became stronger. One evening, when everything around them was quiet, they found themselves thinking about a moment involving you. It may have seemed insignificant when it happened, but to them it suddenly carried new meaning. They remembered a time when you showed patience even though you were hurting. They remembered the strength behind your silence. They remembered how you gave kindness without demanding recognition. And that is when the first layer of the message was born. They wanted to tell you, "I see now what I could not see then." But those words frightened them, not because they were false, but because they were completely true. They began realizing that you were never asking them to be perfect. You were asking them to be honest. You were not asking them to promise the impossible. You were asking them to stop hiding behind uncertainty. You were not demanding that they have every answer. You only wanted them to meet you with the same sincerity you had offered them. This understanding did not arrive gently. It moved through them like a sudden wave, bringing regret, gratitude, longing, and hope at the same time. They started revisiting moments where they could have spoken more clearly. Times when they held back. Times when fear wore the disguise of caution. Times when pride convinced them to wait. Now they are wondering whether they waited too long. But heaven has not brought you here to fill your heart with fear. This is not a message of loss. It is a message about awakening. Something in your soulmate is waking up, and awakening is rarely comfortable. It forces a person to look at what they avoided. It brings hidden feelings into the light. It makes silence impossible to maintain. That is why you may have sensed their energy before hearing their words. Their heart has been moving toward a confession. Do not skip what comes next, because this confession is not only about love. It is about what they discovered when they looked honestly at themselves. Your connection became a mirror. Through you, they began seeing the places where they were afraid to be vulnerable. They saw the walls they built after disappointment. They saw the habits they developed to protect themselves. And they finally understood that those walls were not only keeping pain out. They were also keeping love away. You did not create those walls, my child. You simply stood close enough for them to realize the walls were there. For a long time, they may have misunderstood your emotional depth. They may have thought your silence meant indifference, when it actually meant self-respect. They may have mistaken your patience for endless availability. They may have assumed you would always remain exactly where they left you. But something recently showed them that you are changing. They can feel it. You are not waiting in the same way anymore. Your soul has been learning to stand without begging for reassurance. Your heart has been becoming softer toward itself. You have started understanding that real love does not require you to abandon your dignity. You are becoming the version of yourself that can receive love without chasing it. And your soulmate senses this transformation. It has created urgency inside them. The message they carry is beginning to press against the silence because they fear that if they remain quiet much longer, the moment may pass them by. They are realizing that your life is not frozen. You are moving forward. You are healing. You are becoming brighter, clearer, and more certain about what you deserve. They have noticed that your energy no longer asks, "Will you choose me?" Instead, it says, I will no longer choose what refuses to meet me honestly. This change has shaken them more than you know. There was a moment, perhaps very recently, when they imagined you giving your heart to someone who was ready. Someone who did not hesitate. Someone who recognized your value without needing distance to understand it. That thought entered their mind quietly, but it did not leave quietly. It forced them to confront what losing your place in their life would truly mean. They realized they did not only miss your presence. They missed the person they became around you. They missed the honesty your energy awakened. They missed the hope they felt when imagining a future that carried your name. They missed the strange peace that came from knowing someone in this world could see beyond their surface. And then the message grew deeper. They wanted to tell you, you mattered more than I allowed you to know. But even that is not the full message. There is something else they have been carrying, something they have struggled to admit even to themselves. They are not only thinking about what happened between you. They are thinking about what could still happen. They have begun imagining a conversation where nothing is hidden. No games. No half-truths. No pretending to care less than they do. In that imagined conversation, they tell you why they became quiet. They explain what they feared. They admit where they were confused. They reveal the moment they knew the connection was real. They have replayed this conversation many times. Sometimes they imagine you listening in silence. Sometimes they imagine you turning away. Sometimes they imagine tears in your eyes. And sometimes, in the version they secretly hope for, they imagine you saying, I always knew there was more you wanted to say. But they do not know which version will become real. That uncertainty is what has kept them from speaking. Yet something is shifting. The fear of rejection is beginning to feel smaller than the fear of permanent silence. This is important, my child, because people do not change when they feel nothing. They change when the truth becomes heavier than their excuses. Your soulmate is reaching that point. The truth has become too present. Too persistent. Too alive. They may still appear calm to the people around them. They may continue their routine, answer messages, smile at the right moments, and speak as if everything is normal. But beneath that surface, an emotional decision is being formed. They are deciding whether to step toward you with honesty. And heaven has been preparing both hearts for what honesty may uncover. You have also been through a transformation. There were nights when you questioned whether you imagined the connection. There were moments when you wondered why something so powerful had to feel so uncertain. You asked for clarity, but clarity did not arrive in the form you expected. Instead, it arrived through growth. You learned where you were giving too much. You learned where hope became attachment. You learned that love can be sacred without becoming an excuse to tolerate confusion. You learned to hold compassion for another person without losing compassion for yourself. These lessons were not punishment. They were preparation. Because the message your soulmate carries must meet a stronger version of you. The old version of you may have accepted any explanation just to keep the connection alive. The wiser version of you listens not only to words, but to consistency. The old version of you may have mistaken longing for destiny. The healed version understands that destiny still requires courage, action, and truth. This is why the timing has felt delayed. It was never only about when they would become ready to speak. It was also about when you would become ready to hear them without abandoning yourself. Now both sides of the story are approaching the same doorway. But there is one more layer you must understand. Your soulmate's message may not arrive exactly as you imagine. It may not begin with a grand declaration. It may begin simply. A question. A memory. A small attempt to reopen a door they once allowed to close. They may hide the depth of their feelings behind ordinary words because ordinary words feel safer. Do not judge the entire message by its first sentence. Sometimes a person begins with, "How have you been?" when their heart is really asking, "Is there still a place for me in your world?" Sometimes they say, "I was thinking about you," when the truth is, "I have not been able to stop thinking about you." Sometimes they mention an old memory because they are not yet brave enough to say, "I miss who we were before fear came between us." The surface words may be simple, but the emotion beneath them may be enormous. You will feel the difference. Not because you are meant to chase hidden meanings, but because sincerity has an energy that performance cannot imitate. When someone speaks from fear, their words feel scattered. When someone speaks from truth, even imperfect words carry weight. Your soulmate is being guided toward that truth. But guidance does not remove free will. They still have to choose courage. They still have to decide whether to step beyond the patterns that once kept them silent. Heaven can place the truth before a heart, but the heart must open the door. That is why this moment feels suspended. A choice is near. They have been receiving their own signs. A song that reminded them of you at an exact moment. A dream that felt more vivid than usual. A conversation with someone who unknowingly described your situation. A sudden emotion that arrived with no visible cause. They have tried to dismiss these moments, but each one has led them back to the same truth. You. Not the fantasy of you. Not a perfect image. The real you. The you who has felt deeply. The you who has been misunderstood. The you who tried to remain strong while carrying questions no one could see. The you who loved with sincerity even when uncertainty made it difficult. They are beginning to see the real you, and that recognition has changed the message. At first, they only wanted to tell you that they missed you. Now they want to tell you why. At first, they only wanted to reopen communication. Now they want to reveal what the silence taught them. At first, they believed the message was about their feelings. Now they understand it is also about accountability. They know they cannot return with the same confusion and expect a different outcome. They know they cannot offer fragments and ask you to build a future from them. Something within them understands that this time, honesty must be complete. They may need to admit that they were afraid of the intensity of the connection. They may need to acknowledge that they pulled away because being seen so clearly felt unfamiliar. They may need to tell you that your love touched places in them they had kept hidden for years. But there is one truth they have not yet decided how to say. It is the truth at the center of everything. The truth that caused them to stop one night, put aside every distraction, and finally admit what your presence had awakened. That night, they realized the connection was not haunting them because it was unfinished. It was calling them because it was still alive. And in that moment, they formed a sentence in their mind. A sentence they have repeated more than once. A sentence they may soon speak directly to you. But before they can deliver it, something must happen. They must make a choice that proves the message is more than emotion. Because words alone will not be enough now. They know this. They know you have heard promises before. They know you have watched people speak beautifully and act carelessly. They know your heart is no longer impressed by intensity without intention. So they are considering an action. A real action. Something that would show you they are not only remembering the connection but are willing to honor it. This is where the story becomes even more unexpected. Because the action they are considering is connected to a truth they recently discovered about your past, something that helped them understand why you loved the way you did, why you sometimes became quiet, and why certain moments affected you more deeply than they realized. They learned something about you. Not through gossip. Not through betrayal. But through a moment that opened their eyes to a part of your heart they had never fully understood. And when they understood it, they felt a wave of emotion so strong that they could no longer see your story the same way. They realized you were never asking them to rescue you. You were asking them not to repeat what had already wounded you. That realization changed everything. It made them look back at their own behavior with painful clarity. It showed them the moments when their silence may have touched an old wound. It revealed how uncertainty may have made you question your worth, even though their hesitation was never a reflection of your value. They wanted to reach for you immediately. But then another thought stopped them. What if their message came too late? What if you had already decided that peace without them was better than confusion with them? What if the door was still visible but no longer open? This fear has not made them forget you. It has made the message more urgent. They are no longer asking themselves whether they feel something. They are asking themselves whether they are brave enough to tell the truth before the opportunity disappears. And now, my child, the silence is approaching its limit. Something is moving toward revelation. The message is almost ready. The action is being considered. The sentence has already been formed. But the part they have not yet told anyone is this. Before they reach out, they plan to do something that may completely change the meaning of their words. Something that connects your past, their regret, and the future they are secretly hoping to build. And when you discover what they are preparing to say, you may finally understand why the connection never fully left your heart. Because the first words of their message are not what will surprise you most. It is the final confession they are still gathering the courage to reveal.